When all things seem to be being signified, it's important to have a rough translation of what the signifiers pretend. When Martha Gellhorn wrote to me from Belize, she used the P.O. Box 1234, which is a startup call for a rock and roll song. 2, 3, 4, hit it. She committed suicide on February 17th of, I believe it was in the 90s. And this signified two virgins. She was just 17. Many people in Pepperland have gurgled their approval, Robert Kennedy Jr., no doubt, because she was associated with Eleanor Roosevelt, and the Roosevelts and the Kennedys have graciously conceded executive power to successors. And the Beatles love to gurgle that the collective psychology of Eno and Ono impute and hold dominion over all, indomitable Beatlemania. And so Martha Gellhorn's voice rings as a notarization of all things Jeffin, which means Nosferatu. Now, I want to call attention to a few things. One is why she wrote me. Two is what her historical foundations were on the left as a friend of Eleanor Roosevelt. Three, her condition as a supporter of Israel and what it indicates about her historic consternation that she brought to me when she put her through herself in my path and Freddie's feet and read in Montana. Opened the box, found her book. It was obvious to read it. But she wrote to me very quickly after I filled her in. Meaning, at the bottom line, ultimately, what I'll get back to here is her obstinance and refusal to confront or review, which signals approval of Jeffin because they have perpetuated that. And when it fell into the lap of the Palestinians, we see where it led. So let me go through some of these issues. First, why she wrote to me. She wrote to me because my investigation about Desert Island. Now, Martha, let me tell you about her as a lover. She threw herself into the reporting of World War II. She went immediately to the French front, to the Spanish front in the Civil War. She could not comprehend or believe what Weisler was pulling. And she said, "Come ahead, Adolf." That was the title of one of her articles in, like, "Come ahead, Adolf." I don't know how, that she was a St. Louis gal. She was truculent when it came to the fascists. And the Palestinian intellectuals have pointed out to me today that the Palestinian revolution of that same time period didn't attract intellectuals from the left. But you would think that Martha Gellhorn would sympathize with them, seeing what they went up against in Spain. The left was up against in Spain. She hated Franco. And I believe that she would hate Nosferatu, but she never came down in favor of anything Palestinian because she saw the liberation of Dachau and bought into, much to the fury and irritation of many of her fans and friends, the perpetual innocence of Israel. Now, some things can be explained. The British mandate was at work in Palestine, not Hitler's Germany. So it didn't attract her immediate ire. And she didn't pursue it to look into it. She was elsewhere, as many people on the left were. And I endorse the idea this needs to be explored, that the Palestinian left should have been validated by people who were anarchistically inclined, as the Spanish Civil War leaders were. And the Spanish Civil War leaders seemed to have had something in common with the Palestinians like Kanani, because they believed in the liberation of the voice of the people. The people would never be liberated until they knew what was going on, the facts. And the Palestinian Kanani people weren't out for establishing statehood as a priority. They wanted liberation of the mind. They wanted people to be respected, their integrity to be validated by information, not clandestine manipulation of talk, but truth, full disclosure. And the Spanish Civil War, there's a caveat in that, because the Spanish anarchists were elected into office, but then abandoned the notion of statehood because they disapproved of authority. And this is a problem in democracy in America, too. The problem with democracy in America seems to be that people like the idea of participating, but they don't like government. They don't like the difficulties that are involved in steeling yourself to abstract labors that are required to maintain the integrity of a commonwealth. Things get too personal. When they get too personal, they get too ugly. And so people walk away. Okay. So the second thing is, I don't remember how I listed them now, but why I wrote to her was because, see, as a lover, Martha Gellhorn threw herself into the passions of the war, and men who were going to the front fell in love with her and wanted to sleep with her. She put no importance to it. So she wasn't one of these people who was dill pickle happy as a fundamentalist, hooded type. You know, she wasn't the type of person to persecute a kid in his 20s who's sleeping with girls who were eager to sleep with him. That wasn't the type of person she was. She took casual notice that sex had importance to some people and didn't have importance to her. She wanted to help these men face the confrontation at the front, so she gave herself to them. And that was the way she was. So, you know, when you look at her consternation about what I wrote, you mustn't read into it the laughing gas of Mick Jagger and Ringo Starr. She said I had a great sense of urgency, and that was accurate. I was very upset about what had happened. And she was followed by people going, urgent, urgent, and putting Miss Seymour's in theater marquees. I mean, the Peter Gabriel people. She was not discrediting me. She wanted to know specifically what I was saying. Are you seriously telling me that you found evidence that Reagan was behind the AIDS attack? You cannot mean that. She said it bluntly, and I admired her courage in being so direct. The answer was yes, and I tried again to explain to her why. Okay. Now, when you put all of these things together, you can see that the abandonment of the people in Palestine is not exclusive in any way except that they were next to be victimized. It's not exclusive that they didn't come to my rescue or investigate honestly what was being done with me. And in many ways, the Palestinian left was following Martha Gellhorn.